and honored guests. Every Friday afternoon, when I was a freshman in high school, I would go throughout my school with some of my friends once classes were done and gather together recycling bins. We'd take them down to the basement, and our job as members of the recycling club was to resort the aluminum cans, the plastic bottles, separate it from the trash and anything else that might have gotten in there. And for me, it was an important way, even though it was small, to give back, to help out, to feel like I was making some small difference. Looking back on it, I think that I probably wouldn't do it now. It was pretty gross going through those cans. It was pretty disgusting dealing with the garbage and the liquid that collected down there. But it was, for me at the time, a great experience. After I finished high school and went on to college, I went to the College of William & Mary in Virginia. I knew that I wanted, through my academic career, to give back in some way. So I started thinking that I would do international relations. But taking a class, I found that the subject matter was, and the scale was so great, I couldn't see how I could have an impact. I ultimately became a government major, and I took classes on the federal government. And again, in thinking about what I might do after I graduated, I just couldn't see myself there and making a difference. It wasn't until my senior year of college that I took a class called The Politics of Metropolitan Areas that talked about cities and the role governance of cities has on the people who live there. And I found it to be a fascinating topic. It was at that same time that I learned about the field of urban planning, which is an interdisciplinary study of cities considering land use, housing, transportation, economic development. Basically, urban planners are problem solvers for cities. So I thought that might be a place where I could see myself going. After I graduated from college, I moved to Washington, D.C. and lived there for 4 years. And for the second 2 of those 4 years, I worked for a membership organization called the National League of Cities. So I was making my way closer and closer to this field of urban planning that I was so interested in. At the same time, I discovered another passion while I was there. I had always enjoyed joking around with friends, and several friends and I decided to take an improvisational comedy class. And I ended up going through the entire curriculum and joining a troupe while I was there. And it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that I'll tell you guys more about that and about improv in general in a future speech. So after I worked at NLC, National League of Cities, for 2 years, I decided it was time to go to grad school. So I moved to New York City and enrolled in New York University to study urban planning. It was a great opportunity to learn about this field. I felt like walking to class, I learned just as much out on the streets as I did up in the classroom. I really got to experience a living laboratory for my subject matter. And I would say one of the most important things that I witnessed while I was there, important to me, was the transformation taking place on the streets. Some of you may have heard of the commissioner of the Department of Transportation in New York City, how she's been very instrumental in taking back some of the streets from cars and putting in protected bike lanes or putting in plazas where people can sit and enjoy the city free of charge, not having to sit at a restaurant or anything like that. And I found that transformation to be remarkable and very important to quality of life in cities. I would say the clearest example of that is in the Times Square neighborhood, in a place where it used to be just be jostled on the sidewalk, tried to keep from falling out on the street into traffic. You now have an opportunity to sit down on Broadway and enjoy this great neighborhood that New York City has. After graduating from grad school, I knew that I wanted to be in this field, that transportation would be the right fit for me. And so I took a job here in Boston at a transportation planning firm. Through that firm, I've had the opportunity to work on projects that have helped people navigate from home to medical appointments through a variety of transportation services, or get to the grocery store. I've also helped towns with very limited resources maximize the existing parking that they have so that they don't put any more money towards building parking when that's unnecessary. And I definitely will talk about these topics in future speeches because I find them very interesting, and I hope I can make them interesting to you all. Never did I imagine that when I was recycling cans in high school that I would ultimately live in Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston. But living in all those places has further reinforced my interest in urban planning, and I thank you all for letting me share that with you today.